This video will explain some of the most frequent comma mistakes that students make and help you understand why they are mistakes. Most of these mistakes are when students have extra commas that aren't necessary in their sentences. So let's look at the first mistake. The worst part about the car accident comma was that I didn't have any insurance. Here we have that unnecessary comma after the word accident. This is unnecessary because here the student has placed the comma between a subject and a verb. If none of the other comma rules apply, if you don't have a coordinating conjunction after your subject, if you don't have a series of adjectives, if you don't have items in a list, etc., there's no reason for you to need to put a comma between your subject and your verb. The sentence should not have a comma at all. Here's the second mistake. Linda was so busy, comma, that she can't come to the party. This is an unnecessary comma too. There's not a reason to put a comma after a verb or a verb phrase. You'll notice that in both of these two examples, these problems probably arose from students being taught to place a comma wherever you would take a breath. When we speak, we might say, Linda is so busy that she can't come to the party. While we might put that pause there for emphasis, that doesn't mean we need a comma there. If you were taught that rule, throw it out the window. The actual rule is to pause when you read a comma in a sentence, not to just place commas anywhere where you pause when you speak. Let's look at our third mistake. Ryan enjoys eating apple pie, comma, and ice cream. We don't need this comma, but can you figure out why? This is a series in the list, but there are only two items here, so we don't need to separate them with commas. Here's our next mistake. We discuss the advantages to studying in groups, comma, and discuss the advantages to studying in front of the TV. Why is this comma unnecessary? We have the coordinating conjunction and here, but this conjunction does not connect to complete sentences. The part of the sentence after the conjunction and, which says discuss the disadvantages to studying in front of the TV, is not a complete sentence, so we do not need a comma here. What about this sentence? I went to school, but, comma, I really just wanted to go home and relax. Can you figure out what's wrong with this? We have a coordinating conjunction and we have complete sentences around our coordinating conjunction, so we do need a comma. But where does our comma go? It doesn't go after the conjunction, it goes before the conjunction. I better study, comma, because I really need to pass the test. This is a mistake I see students make frequently, placing a comma before because. But what type of word is it? Is because? It is joining two complete sentences, but is it a coordinating conjunction? Is it one of our fan voice words? No. Because of that, it does not need a comma before it. Let's talk about using commas with quotations. You definitely need commas when you're using a direct quote. This is when someone has literally opened up his or her mouth and the exact words have come out. Let's look at an example. Willie said, "Man, that water is freezing." You need to separate the quote from the attributive tag Willie said with a comma. So our sentence should look like this. Willie said, comma, "Man, that water is freezing." We need the comma here because Willie opened his mouth and the words, "Man, that water is freezing," came out. So we need commas with direct quotes, but we don't need commas with indirect quotes. Indirect quotes are when we relay information that someone else said by summarizing what was said, but we don't use the exact words. So in this instance, nobody literally opened up their mouth and said those particular words. Here's an example. Willie said that the water was cold. Why shouldn't I put a comma after said? Because Willie didn't open his mouth and say that the water was cold. Here, I'm just summarizing what Willie said. These are some examples of the most commonly made mistakes that I have seen students use when trying to use commas. Again, most of these are caused by students believing that they need to put a comma where they take a breath. The rule is to pause and take a breath when you see a comma in writing. The rule is not to put commas anywhere you take a breath when you speak.